Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to week 2. This is super fun. This is actually the second time that I've gone through the Secret Code book. And it's always interesting when you go through it another time, when you go through any book a second time or any coaching or you listen to a podcast or video, it's funny how you hear it with different ears, you know? So I'm excited to host this week. I'm very clearly obviously not Jessica Heffley, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan Goff, and I'm a mom of almost 7 children, soon to be 7 kids. My husband and I live we live about a half a mile now from the farm. We just built a big farmhouse thanks to Plexus, and we have actually been in Plexus for over 5 years. And I'm a diamond. Justin is going to be a diamond this month. That's the plan. And so we're super excited to be able to just share what's been a blessing to us with a lot of people. And we're big proponents of book studies and mindset stuff. And so fun fact is that Jessica Heffley actually grew up about an hour from where we live, and where I live now is where I grew up. And so it's just funny how connections and networks work, because actually my sponsor went to church camp with Jessica Heffley, and Jessica was her camp counselor. So isn't that funny how, God arranges things and people, and then here we are connected back, and we're on this secret code study together. So this is recorded, so you guys can go back and listen. These were actually 2 very, very good chapters. Honestly, what I remember from the first time I read this book was exactly what these 2 chapters have in it. So the affirmations, the safe havens and loving mirrors, and then the whole head trash idea. So if you get nothing else out of this book, remember those 3 or 4 things, because it's actually really, really key to growth and success. And I think that's why we are coming back around to this book, because it is a good one to read and reread. And honestly, anything that helps you in your mindset, it's not going to just end with you. The mindset stuff that we're learning, it affects your marriage, it affects your kids, it affects any person that you touch. And so all this work that you're doing and the learning that you're subjecting yourself to is going to have a basically like a filter down effect, or it's going to open up the world to not just you, but other people, because you're going to influence and impact other people. So I'm just going to say really quickly that I'm super thankful, because when we joined Carrie's team and then Rob and Jessica's, bigger team, we got exposed to mindset training and this whole emphasis on personal growth. And we really appreciate how much Rob and Jessica both have promoted that, because it is very key. Just like they're big proponents of good, getting counseling, I think all of us have growth to do in terms of our mindset and in terms of, the things that might hold us back. And so there is no shame in counseling. There's no shame in really working on mindset, because all of us, we come into a business like this with a certain skill set, with certain personal experiences, with a background that may or may not have been conducive to what we do now, right? But the cool thing is that you can start where you're at, and we can grow from there. And this is a key thing to remember, is once there's an awareness, then you can overcome, right? Because you can't unhear something. So it's like, once there's an awareness of head trash or negative self-talk or disempowering questions that you maybe, your brain may be telling you, once there's an awareness there, then you can recognize it in yourself, and you'll recognize it in other people. You'll recognize it in your kids. And so it's a really cool thing. When Justin and I started Plexus, we didn't have any experience in network marketing. We'd never really heard of personal growth. There's a lot of things that we did to learn. And so we've always been learners and wanting to put ourselves in a position to get better, right? And so that's one reason why we read our Bible. That's one reason why we pray. That's one reason why we go to church, right? Because those things influence. That's personal growth, right? But this emphasis on some great books. My husband says the best personal growth book out there is the Bible. But I will also say that we've gleaned a lot from different authors. John Maxwell, Dale Carnegie, Noah St. John. There's just some great authors out there that really shed light on some I don't know what the word is, just thought patterns that we tend to find ourselves in. And we realized that we were pretty negative. And so the mindset stuff that we've subjected ourselves to has really helped us really flip that and be aware of the way we're thinking, because there is a battle for our mind. And I'll just say that the mind is a very powerful tool, right? It can really affect things for the positive or the negative. And this is another key point, is what we focus on expands. And so if we're constantly focusing on the negative instead of the positive, or that's going to be what we focus on all the time. And so I just think it's really interesting. Successful people think a certain way, and they ask themselves certain questions, and they think differently, and they also see themselves in a different light. And so I think that's the cool thing, is we're learning how to think like successful people. And so step 1 is all about affirmations. That was chapter 4. And then step 2 is all about the loving mirrors and safe havens. There's a lot in this, so we're going to just dig in and work together. So if you had some sort of major takeaway from these 2 chapters, can you put it in the chat thread? I just think it's interesting, and it's more valuable to all of us if we have, other people chiming in thoughts, things they learned. Put it in the chat thread. And if anyone, wants to share and just like verbalize something, feel free to raise your hand. But I'm going to ask for participation. So get ready. Okay. I might have to call on people if no one's going to share. Okay. So an affirmation is a statement our minds don't necessarily believe, right? So you can say all day, whatever the affirmation is. I am organized, right? But what Noah is saying in this chapter, he basically made up the word affirmation. But I think the key difference is that it's you basically taking the affirmation and flipping it into a question, and so that your subconscious mind naturally starts to answer that question. Okay, so our brains also start to light up when we ask ourselves questions. So my question for you guys is, are you naturally curious? Do you explore the statements that your brain is telling you? Do you ever question that? Like if you say, oh my word, I'm so overwhelmed, or I'm not a good mom, or whatever crazy things our brain tells us, do you ever question that? Because this chapter hopefully has brought that awareness of, what, I need to question, like, why am I thinking that way? Why am I feeling this way? What creative solutions could I do to deal with those feelings? But I think the other thing is, when we have a truth statement come into our brain, you have to recognize whether it's a negative or a disempowering question, or whether it's an empowering question, or if you can flip that negative question into a positive one, right? So I think the difference is having a truth statement versus a curious question. And I've used, honestly, over the past 5 years, I've used affirmations, and I've also used affirmations. I've used both, and I think both are important. There is something to verbalizing things, and when you speak things out, that sets it in motion. And so I think this is something that I've been learning as a wife and a mom. What I verbalize is really impactful, and it's better to not say it. If you feel like you have to get it out, write it down and journal about it, but don't speak it out, because that will set to motion certain things. And also you have little ears listening too, which makes it even more important that we're guarding our heart and our minds, but we're also guarding our tongue. So it's not just like diarrhea of the mouth whenever we want to talk, and whenever we want to just externally process, right? And so being guarded and careful about what does come out of our mouth. But before it comes out of our mouth, it's always a thought or something that's in our heart first. And so this is something else to remember. You manifest what you focus on. So what do you want to be manifesting? Do you want to be calling into your life a bunch of negativity and unsuccessful stuff? I don't want to. So I think really being disciplined about what we're thinking about and what we're saying. So, okay, page 59, if you turn to that page, that's where the quote came from. You manifest what you focus on. And it's whether it's conscious or not. So now we're bringing awareness to our subconscious thoughts. So did any of you write down your 5 most disempowering questions you hear in your head? You guys write those down? Let me look in the chat. I think maybe some put head trash. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm undeserving. Too heavy to be a diamond. Okay. Jolie says yes. Amber says, I never did until I read this book a couple years ago. Yes, speaking things that you want to see in your life. Does anyone feel vulnerable? I mean, is anyone willing enough to share one of your most disempowering questions? I feel like I have more like statements. I don't notice them being question form. I'm like, this is how you are. Anyone want to unmute and share something that you wrote down?
I wrote down, am I strong enough to succeed?
Awesome. Anyone else?
One of mine, oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Hey, Amber.
Hey, sorry, I'm cooking lunch, so I'm in and out, sorry. One of mine I wrote down is, why can't I focus and finish what I start?
Why can't you what?
Focus and finish what I start.
Have any of you ever heard disempowering questions when it comes to maybe not even business, but like wife, mom type stuff? I feel like that's where it hits home for me. And maybe that's just the season of life that I'm in. It's like, you know, am I good? Am I a good enough mom? Am I a good wife? I think sometimes like the boundary, or not boundaries, but the limits that my life has had, and like even now or in the past, is like I don't have enough time. It's almost like this expression of discontent that my heart wants to just like be, frustrated about. But I think on page on page 60, they talk about empowering questions, where we can flip those subconscious questions or statements that we naturally think of, right? Because our brain naturally goes to the negative. So all the more reason why we have to fight tooth and nail for what our thoughts are thinking, right? And so asking the right question is really important. So empowering questions cause your mind to focus on what you have versus what you lack. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was super, super good. Asking empowering questions leads to feelings of self-esteem and a positive self-image, because your mind automatically begins to focus on what's right about you instead of what's wrong. And it's kind of like, even with the whole issue of like, I don't have enough time, I didn't get anything done today. Have any of you complained about that? But we got 50 million things done. It's just that we probably didn't conquer our entire list, right? So it's like almost like that I'm not enoughness issue, which obviously none of us are enough, right? And everything that I hear or have, even sometimes the self-esteem, personal growth movement statements, I always view those, and this is just me personally, but I always view those through the lens of a biblical worldview. And so I am not enough because I need Jesus, right? We need the help of someone outside of us. And so I frame that in the sense of, it reveals my need for the Lord's help, right? In things. But I think recognizing like, I'm not enough. How do I overcome this? Because I mean, when it comes down to like just nitty gritty specifics, sometimes it's an area where you're like, you know what? I'm undisciplined. Sometimes it's an awareness of a reason why you're feeling a certain way or why you're telling yourself something. So I think that's important to also think about. So how can you reverse the negative questions to a positive? For example, if your disempowering question is, why am I such a loser? Your empowering question would be the reverse of that. Why am I such a success? Shanna, can you flip the question that you had into an empowering version of that?
How am I so strong and successful?
I love that. Amber, are you able to unmute and share the empowering version of yours?
Yeah, I put it in the chat too, but yes, I put how am I able to get done all the things that I did get done, and decide to focus on what I did get done and not on the thing that I didn't. Because like you guys always say, what you focus on expands. And so if I always focus on what I didn't get done, or why my kids didn't let me do this or this and that, kind of like what you said, it was just discipline for myself. And if I carve out the time and honor that time, then I feel like that gets me more, I get the things done that I want to get done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I just looked at how am I able to get all of this done? And then through that question, I learned that I just need to schedule it and I can get everything done. Well, try to anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. I think that's a key point. And I think it's this awareness of when we are morphing into victim mentality and we're blaming instead of taking personal responsibility and overcoming. And I think it's from this book where he talks about being a conscious creator. I didn't I didn't spend time and write these down, but I know Jessica Heffley had a list. I feel like it was a couple years ago. She did a coaching session where she made a list of all of the, signs of victim talk. And it can be like mental talk too, right? It's mental self-talk where you're just victim mentality versus like a conscious creator, or I would say like an overcoming mentality, right? And so actually that might be good. Maybe I could type that out and get that posted at some point. But anyways, I think that the key is recognizing the disempowering questions and then flipping those to a positive. And so I wrote down a couple of ones. I learned this one from Emily Gibson. She goes, it legit works, you need to try it. So this is the empowering question. Why are so many people messaging me to order? Why are so many people messaging me to order? A lot of successful people, like that's how they think. Have you ever heard someone on your team, or maybe you do this or have done it, where you're just like, oh my word, no one's ordering, everyone's canceling, where it's just like, just basically like verbalizing negativity instead of, you know what? I'm really excited about this month. There's gonna be a lot of people that order from me. There's going to be a lot of people excited to get started on Plexus. There's gonna be a lot of people restart that fell off the bandwagon that just, whatever reason, life got busy and crazy. I think it's like the difference between assuming the positive and assuming the negative. The people that assume the negative they suck the life out of everything. They're drains. They're just like leaky faucets, right? And so I think it's, if we have that awareness of, what am I saying? Not just in my mind, but what am I verbalizing? And so if you recognize that you have a negative bent in light of how you're asking questions or you're making statements about your business, it's like, have you guys listened to Tara Castaneda's video about the cloud? I really liked that because I'm such a visual person. I just like envisioned this. So it was basically what you say about your business basically forms a cloud around your business. So what are those little statements that you're making? Everyone's messaging me to order. People are so excited about Plexus. Like that talk, when you verbalize that sets something in motion. And it also is that like that law of attraction, just like the law of sowing and reaping. There is like universal laws that govern life. I can't explain it. I don't know if it's like somewhat of a spiritual thing or what, but when you verbalize that, I think it also raises up your energy levels, and people are attracted to like positive, uplifting, passionate, excited people. Right? And so if you want to attract more of that into your life, more of that into your business, that's what you have to be saying. I mean, and maybe it takes a little while for you to believe that, but I promise you, if you start verbalizing it and you start acting on the things that you know to be doing, it's like magic sauce. I mean, we say it's magic, but it's not, right? It's what you say and speak out the way you're thinking and what your actions are doing that's going to bring you success. And success breeds success. So the more you put those positive statements out and attract those people to you, it's like this cycle, and it's this, oh my word, this is exciting. And so it's like this, like Tara said, that cloud around your business, what you're speaking out, ends up manifesting itself. So anyways, okay, a couple other ones that I grabbed from Jessica's post. Why do so many people want what I have to offer? How will people know about the gift of Plexus if I don't invite them? I think sometimes we have these underlying assumptions like, well, if people wanted it, they would come and talk to me. Have any of you ever felt like that? Number 3 or 4. Why is success all around me? And I'll just share with you guys really quickly, when I started Plexus, I didn't start for business. I never ever envisioned like double diamond, this being our gig, like what we do, we get to travel and homeschool our kids and work plexus from anywhere, right? That wasn't my vision 5 years ago, but we were praying for a job change for Justin. He was never home. I was like single mom in it. That's what it felt like. And so God brought us this, but I didn't see that at the beginning. Like it took me a couple months to even muster up the gumption to share. Like I'm such a different person than I was back then. I was very introverted, very, very much a man pleaser in the sense of like really worried about what people thought of me. Sweet, I mean, but very, very much like driven by what people thought, or like, I don't want to offend people. Like, I don't want people to think I'm selling them something. And so I had this like come to Jesus moment. I mean, it wasn't really that, but like a flip in my mindset of where I stopped saying and thinking why everyone else could be successful and not me. And so, I mean, I had heard about plexus from Shoshana easily, like 2 years before, and didn't give it the time of day. I'm like, I don't need to lose weight and I'm not diabetic. Like, no, thanks. Also, it looks like I'm out and MLM, not interested. But it was like multiple people over the course of 2 years, and also health issues for myself that led me to, oh my goodness, back around to plexus. And people were like, Megan, you need to look at plexus. It's like gut health, exactly what your jam is, right? And so I started the products, and it was a couple months in before I started to share. But I had this mindset flip where it went from why they are all successful and I can't be to, you know what? Gosh darn it, why can't I be successful? And so I naturally like came to a point where I flipped the disempowering question to the empowering question. It was just, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing or what was happening in my brain, but that's what happened. And I think that was the turning point for me for my success. I mean, I think that was one thing, but also I got a bigger vision because I watched Jarrett Abart's Diamond documentary and was like, oh my word, this could be more than just helping a couple people at church. This could be like time freedom, financial freedom. This could be a huge blessing. And if they're doing it, why can't we do it? I mean, they look like normal people, right? If it's all about a skill set and learning, I mean, getting the proper mindset, like I'm game, I'm in, I can work hard, I can work on myself, I can do the things that they're telling me to do, right? And so I think that should be encouraging to all of us, is that we can flip from the victim mentality or the disempowering questions to the empowering questions. And that might be the thing that clicks, you know, for you and for your success. So, okey-doke. Let's look at, so that was page, okay, so page 62, he's talking about, you know, the human mind operating by asking and answering questions. Like you already naturally do this. It's just an awareness of what those questions are telling you and whether it's an empowering question or disempowering one. So yeah, he says on page 64, you're already using affirmations all the time anyway, right? So why not frame them in the right way so that they breed more success in your life? So on page 65, it says, using affirmations, our minds begin to search for new creative ways to find solutions to the problems. So basically becoming creative thinkers. And also I would just say aware, like becoming more aware of our thought processes. Okay, so then he gives basically the formula for making the affirmation. So if you flip over to page 73, it says the 4 steps of the affirmation method are, number 1, ask yourself what you want. Have you guys written down what you want? If you don't know what you want, I would think about that. Pray about it, journal it, figure out what you want. Okay, so do you have it written down? If you don't, you can work on it. You don't have to necessarily do it right this second. Number 2 is form a question that assumes that what you want is already true. And I think this is a really key point. I remember Brooke Hemingway saying that this business, I mean, if we're going to apply this to specifically our Plexus businesses, this business takes faith. And this is something that I didn't realize, I wasn't conscious of, but I started to see things happening before they actually did. Like I could foresee, you know what? We're going to be diamonds. Like if Shoshana can be, why can't I? Or whoever, Jarrett or whatever other person, right? So I started to see with the eyes of faith, like seeing something before it actually comes to pass. I started to see, you know what, people are going to be coming back to thank me for sharing plexus with them. Yes, that doesn't mean that I've never had anyone say no to me. I've had a lot of people say no. That doesn't mean that I haven't gotten people started and then they totally stop and fall off the bandwagon. All 5 years in, I will say those people will come back. Not maybe everyone, but some of them will come back and be like, oh my word, what was I thinking? I got off. I mean, I felt the best when I was taking the products. Hello. You know, and so people do come back. People actually will come back and work the business, whether they worked it before or didn't. One of my very first customers just ranked up to senior gold last month. She came back after, she was my very first customer, quit. They were missionaries in Sudan, South Sudan. And then, you know, life was crazy for them. Then she came back, and Justin and I did a video right after we got back from Hawaii, and just kind of laid out like Facebook Live, just on open Facebook, like, hey, this is a scoop about the business we have. And she's like, boom, I'm in. I'm going to work the business. And then she just ranked up last month to senior gold, and she's working on Ruby. So all that to say, have the eyes of faith when you look at yourself, when you look at your business, and when you form a question that assumes that what you want is already true. Okay. Number 3, let your mind search for the answer. So maybe, okay, let's just pretend you want to be a diamond. So instead of saying, there's no way I could ever be a diamond, I'm not good enough, I'm not blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so we're going to form an empowering question that assumes that what I want is already true. Like, let's see. So if your negative question is, why can't I be? Or why, maybe the positive version of that is, I guess I'm thinking more of an affirmation, like I am a diamond. Maybe something more along the lines of, why can't I, through learning the skill set and learning the correct mindset, be a diamond with all the other diamonds in plexus? Maybe that would be an empowering version of that. Okay, you're getting like unfiltered here with me sharing these things. Okay, number 3, let your mind search for the answer. And then number 4 is take new actions based on your new assumptions about life. So I thought it was really important point that he made is like, if you're going to make an affirmation about your healthy eating habits and things like that, you can't like use the same or, you know, have the same action steps that you had before. So it's kind of a 2-pronged approach, where you can't assume that you can just keep going through McDonald's and just go ahead and use those questions, and that's going to make the magic in your life, right? So he said the universal law of sowing and reaping is still at play. What you sow, you will reap. But I think that the key is, a lot of times before anything is ever an action, it's a thought. And so we need to be obviously working on our thought life, because, oh yes, on page 66, it says your life is a reflection of the thought seeds you plant and give energy to. More precisely, your life is a reflection of the unconscious assumptions you make about your life and the relationship you have with it. I don't remember where he said that part about the law of sowing and reaping, but here it is on page 71. He said, you cannot ask yourself, why am I so thin and healthy? And then continue to eat unhealthy foods and expect to lose weight, right? So it's a coupling of the flipping of the verbiage in your mind and what you're verbalizing with correct actions. So it's an intentionality, not just in our minds, but also with our actions. He said, you cannot break the laws of the universe by sowing positive questions and continuing to do negative or self-defeating behaviors and expect to get what you want. So I thought that was a really key point. The other key point I thought was interesting was on page 69, where he said, most people are coming from lack. Coming from lack means your mind is focused on what you don't have. When you're focused on what you don't have, what do you get more of? Feelings of not having. And so I just thought that was really interesting. Okay, so that's basically a recap of chapter 4 about the affirmations. Let me just look over my notes really quickly. Yeah, awareness brings it to light. Okay, does anyone have anything they want to chime in specifically about that chapter? Something you learned about? Why was becoming a diamond so easy for me? There you go. Why am I so successful in plexus? Would anyone like to unmute and share something that they took away from that chapter, or an action step you're going to take? That's another thing, is like, this is really kind of irrelevant. We can pop on and like learn and glean from each other, but unless you're willing to take actions different than what you have, you're going to continue to get the same results, right? So anyone want to unmute and share?
I will, because I'm so brave. But one thing that I have learned between this and some other stuff that I'm doing is we need to focus more on our actions and not our results. If you focus on, oh, I didn't sign up 3, don't focus on that. Focus on how many did you reach out to, because that's what you actually have control of, is how much work did you do? What was your actions? The results will come from your actions. The results, it'll come first. The actions come first. And your actions are what you can control. The results is what God can control.
Mm-hmm. No, really good point. I agree. Well, and I think that a lot of times our action, like the result, will actually be a reflection of the action. And so if we're not getting the results we want, we need to go back and look at the action and say, well, if I wanted to sign 3 this month and I didn't hit that goal, why was that? And so I think can be a lot of different factors, but Jackie, like you said, maybe we didn't take enough action. And so one thing that I've been telling people is like, you know what, in order for me to sign 3, and this is just where I'm at right now in my business. I mean, I'm not branding new to my network, things like that, sharing plexus. I mean, I have to probably have 100 to 150 conversations to be able to sign my 3. More if I want to go for the double stimulus. And so I think having an awareness of how much action I actually have to take. And, maybe for someone else that's new to this business, maybe they, can sign up 3 by talking to 50 people, or, people, there's different factors. Maybe they're an influencer on Facebook or Instagram and, can make a post and sign up 3. It's just, it's very different depending on the season that you're in the business and a lot of different things. But I think that's a really key point, because it does make a difference. The other part to that is, if you're not getting results you want, you need to go ask for coaching. Humble yourself and say, talk to your sponsor or whoever and just say, can you look at some of my messages that I'm sending out? Like, what's the deal here? Because I'm not getting the results I want. And if you've literally had, reached out to 100, 150 and you're not getting the results, it might be some sort of misstep in the process. So yeah, a couple things there, but good. Who else has something they want to share that they learned from that chapter? Hey, how do you pronounce your name?
Sweta.
Sveta. Okay.
Yeah, or Sweta.
All righty.
So on page 68 on the top, where he said, the quality of your life depends on just 2 things: the quality of your communication with the world inside of yourself and the quality of the communication with the world outside of yourself. Right? So what are we feeding into our mind is essentially what we're going to get out, And I kind of took that, until I started doing affirmations, I never really realized the power of affirmations. And the very first time I started doing them, it was about me being a parent and my motherhood, and how over time I have seen the stuff, the lies that I was told. I was like, oh, I'm just not meant to be like a good mom. Like, it's not going to happen, because whatever it was. And when it started changing and how I started feeding my mind with the right stuff, how my actions automatically started to change. And when I started doing, affirmations for my business, how I realized that there's so much more confidence in the way I talk to people, because I was that I don't want to do MLM. I don't want to sell stuff. And, I don't want to be judged. And now I'm like, listen, this is what I have to offer. You need it. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just so much more of a confidence. And I sometimes just will say, well, you're asking me how I can help you, and this is how I can help you. Period. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not like, well, I think this will kind of help you, and if you want to try it, you can. No, you asked me for a solution, and here it is. And I just say it with so much more boldness and confidence. And I have someone on my team who I kind of did a role playing with, and she's like, well, how do I answer this person? And I'm like, okay, so pretend you're talking to her. And within like 3 seconds, she's like, well, I think this will help you. I was like, well, then why don't I just go to the store and buy the supplements over the counter? She's like, well, I was like, okay, bye. And then I told her, I was like, do you see how do you see how you didn't sound confident? I'm like, it helps because it's helped you. So why aren't you saying it with that same belief? And I'm like, that's what I used to do. I'm like, well, yeah, you could kind of, I guess. I don't know. But I felt like, there's that I feel like has been such a huge thing, is what I've been feeding into my mind, is what's been coming out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's very true. Thank you for chiming in. I think it's so important to hear other people's little takeaways. And, sometimes it's like one thing that someone else says, it's like makes the light bulb go off. And so I think that, yes, definitely what we think affects our posture and how we present ourselves. And that comes through, I don't know how, but it can come through on a Facebook message. I really value Carissa Casey's little sound bites video that she did a couple of years ago, where she just gave specific verbiage. Instead of saying the word just, use this instead of saying I think, or sometimes those little tiny words and one little nuance in your message that can make all the difference in your success in helping someone get started. And so I think it's also a natural process, like Sweta said, about how we come in and we start, but we have all these fears, we have all these mountains to overcome in our mind. And so that we can, before you can actually come across as convincing and confident, you have to work through those things. And I think that's a natural process for everyone. And some people come in like me, like no experience whatsoever. And so we have to overcome all that. Some people come in and they have a lot of, experience with a sales background, or they've done, MLMs before or whatever. And so the cool thing is it can all be learned. But I think it stems from belief. Like, do we truly believe what we have? Do you trust your story enough to share it with someone? Like, we need to, and then be confident in that. And I did a video on my team page on Saturday about when you feel like your story isn't enough. But I tell people, I'm like, you know what? Tamara Holloway, pretty sure the main crux of her story is I don't have sugar cravings anymore. And she's built a multi-million-dollar business because I don't have sugar cravings anymore. So don't despise the day of small things, right? Okay, let's move along to chapter 5, which is loving mirrors and safe havens. And I think this is really important because it's something we lack in our culture. But the more you focus on it, I think the more you'll attract it into your life, because you're aware. You're aware of finding mentors. You're aware of finding those safe people that can be an accurate reflection of who you really are. And we've done some exercises at some retreats that we've hosted, which have been very, super life-changing, phenomenal exercises. I remember the first time we did this, actually, there is a girl on my team. She's a personal friend. She grew up with my sister. She's a couple years younger than me, but we're going to watch a movie and just chill out. I don't know if it was the last night, but she's like, hey, I think instead of doing that, we should do this exercise that we did in my Bible study group a couple months ago. She's like, we went around and basically told each individual person what we saw in them. And it was like someone had the hot seat, meaning you were getting told all these positive things about yourself. And it was so impactful and humbling, because I don't know that any of us saw ourselves in the way that everyone else saw us. And that's what he's talking about here, is this basically like the fun house mirror. That's like a distorted view, and that's often how we see ourselves. And then there's the authentic self, and then the loving mirror. And so our head trash is basically the little voice inside saying, you can't do it. Who do you think you are? No one in our family says that or does that. While your authentic self knows you're good enough, your negative reflection tells you you're not good enough, that you could never do that. Maybe they can, but you can't. Have any of you ever dealt with that? I kind of shared my story of dealing with that. We all have our own unique head trash and our own negative reflection. And so I think this is the cool thing is on page 79, it was talking about the evolution of success. The first stage is someone believes in you. And I was reading this thinking, this can be us with our kids or our grandkids, is be that person that believes in them, right? Or other kids or adults even that we're in communication and connection with. We can be that person that believes in someone else. Sometimes it's one thing that you say that will like change everything for that person because you speak life into them and they believe it. And the second stage is you believe in someone else, and then the final stage is you believe in you. And I think that was actually my progression, and I kind of made that switch fairly quickly and fairly early on in my journey is that exact progression. And so actually, have you guys all seen that video of the death crawl? Have y'all seen it? I was gonna play it if some of you haven't. For sake of time, maybe I've had it pulled up. What time is it? Maybe we won't today. But it's actually on Noah St. John's website. You can go check it out. It's on YouTube also. I'm going to show my kids that video today and just talk about how you can be that coach to someone. I mean, you don't have to have the title of a coach, but you can be that encouraging to someone and help them push farther than they could ever thought they could do, right? And so that's why we hire personal trainers, right? That's why we hire a business coach. And Justin and I both have felt like for years, we're like, where are the mentors? Like even before we got married, we're like, where are the mentors? Like we need people like, how do we do this marriage thing? How do we raise kids? But we're realizing mentors are rare. And often you have to pay a professional that's going to come alongside. And yes, we've had wonderful mentors. I mean, my parents, I mean, there's been different people in our church that have been, sprinkled in mentorship. But if you want like an ongoing loving mirror, safe haven, often you have to pay for that. But it's so empowering and it will help you go miles and miles and miles farther than you ever thought because someone else is showing you an accurate reflection of you, asking you specific questions so that you can see the real reflection of you, and they're pushing you farther and faster and harder than you ever would have pushed yourself. So let's see, there was a definition I wanted to go over. Okay, on page 81, it says a loving mirror is a person who gives you unconditional support. And then on page 83, it gives a definition of a safe haven. A safe haven is someone who sees your capacity and potential, someone who holds you to a higher standard and keeps you accountable to the demands of business. In other words, the safe haven doesn't let you get away with not living up to what you're capable of. And what I thought was really cool is that we can be that for people on our teams. And I haven't been very amazing at holding people accountable. I've kind of had this mentality of this business is a gift. It can be exactly what you want it to be. But I've lacked, and I realized this at the last convention, is like, I don't hold people accountable. And maybe it was 2 conventions ago. Because I feel like I'm not their mom. I'm not their babysitter. If they want this, they're going to have to decide and go after it. But I'm realizing that actually it's the loving thing to do. If they have said like, I want this, the loving thing to do is to remind them of what they said and ask them if they would like to partner up and for you, to have an accountability relationship. So that's something that you can learn from me is have the willingness and kind of the mindset of you're in a position where you can offer accountability and support and tell people their potential. I know my sponsor told me that she knew I would be a diamond. I'm like, why did you never tell me that? Because I didn't view myself that way. I thought I was starting for products. Like I didn't even see that. She's like, well, I didn't want to scare you off. I'm like, but you would have helped me overcome mountains by telling me that. I mean, especially after I started to share and you knew that I was like kind of in. And so it's made us more aware. Like we have that kind of relationship where I can say like, hey, why didn't you say anything? And I mean, I get her point. I think I would be the same way. But what I've learned over the past couple of years is we need to tell people what we see in them because they probably don't see it in themselves. And if you tell them, you never know how that's going to impact their mindset and their skill set and lift the bar for them because that's what you see in them. Okay, and then this kind of goes on about just the negative reflection. On page 88, he says, maybe your authentic self says, I'm good enough because I'm a valuable person and I've had enough of putting myself last. I'm bringing value into people's lives and I enjoy doing that. I can succeed at whatever I choose and put the work into. And then he gives a couple of examples of negative reflections and then the flip side of the authentic self. And it's interesting to hear the victim mentality come out, right, in that negative reflection. That's interesting. On page 90, it talks about actually having a written list and sharing it with someone. Did any of you do that exercise? Have any of you done that yet? Where you've asked someone to give you, where you've asked someone to give you in some feedback? Let me see. Did someone say that? I would challenge you to think through who in your life would be a loving mirror or a safe haven. One, so identifying that person or persons, and then I would challenge you to ask them the questions. Let me see, where are those questions at? Oh, it's on page 99. So interview with your loving mirrors and safe havens. Those are very vulnerable questions. But I think the cool thing is, especially if you're in a relationship with a person or persons where you can actually do that mutually for each other, you'll find so much value in doing that. So I'm going to challenge you guys to do this for next week and then come back and report on how that goes. I'll mention that to Jessica. Also, let's talk about on page 93, that visual of the light post. Look at how much the basically the signs that are placed over you, like not enough, can't you be more like so and so, you're ugly, you're stupid, would be happier without you, where basically it's stuff people have said to us that basically dims our light. It affects the way we view ourselves because of other things people have said about us. And so I think if you recognize that you've been told something, that you've believed that lie all your life, you have to, one, bring it to the light, recognize it, and then if it's not true, you need to dismiss that and get rid of that sign that's been placed on you. Okay, and then on page 98, I thought it was good. What are you going to do differently to get the support you need? Do everything that you can think of. The crazier, the better. By definition, therefore, what seems crazy to you might be the one action that makes all the difference. And then he talked a little bit about victim mentality, and then the end of excuses on page 101. He says you can have either excuses or success, not both. And so, I think this is the key thing, is everyone has excuses like that we can use, right? Very justifiable excuses. Unsuccessful people are whiners and victims. Don't be one of them. So I thought this was a good question. Where is that? Where it says, wow, I didn't know I was doing so poorly. What can I do to make it better? So I think the key is, he says, you might be pleasantly surprised. Maybe the person, okay, so this is in reference to asking someone that you're in a relationship with how they would rate the relationship. So it goes back to page 99. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate our relationship? And so then if it's anything less than 10, you need to ask them, what can I do to make it a 10? Hi, can you go with Sam? I'm almost done. So I think, oh, this is the other key thing, is give people permission to have an honest answer, not to justify yourself, right? In that. Okay, so as a recap on page 103, it talks about loving mirrors are people who give you unconditional support, and a safe haven supports you in your professional life. The main difference is that a safe haven sees your personal potential and holds you accountable. So this whole idea of like believing yourself, a lot of times we don't believe in ourselves because of the way we view ourselves. And so having someone in our life that can actually speak truth. It's just the same idea as, did any of you read the Get Out of Your Head book by Jenny Allen? That's a really great book. And I feel like it's, she comes at it from a biblical perspective. But I would encourage you guys, if you haven't read that book or listened to it, it's really good, because she basically talks about getting a friend in your life that can speak truth to you. Even if you feel like you're good at encouraging yourself and speaking truth over yourself, we still need loving mirrors and safe havens to like remind ourselves of the truth about us, the truth about God, the truth. Just this is reality. You need to walk in that. You need to live in that, because we can all get in a funk sometimes, right? Okay. So then page 103, it says, list 3 things that you can do from this chapter in the next 7 days to gain and give a more fulfilling level of unconditional support in your life and business. And then it gives some questions to ask yourself. So I'm just going to open it up for the last 7 minutes for us to have conversation and dialogue. So if some of you are willing to unmute and just share something that you learned from this particular chapter about loving mirrors and safe havens, having that in your life and being that for someone else. I think it's 2-pronged, right? We have to be thinking of how can we attract it into our life, and also who are we, or we need to be that for other people.
I can go. So the loving mirror, I would say, is definitely my husband, and he was in the sales industry for like 10 years, you know. So when I got into this, I would ask him like, hey, this is the problem that I'm having. I'm like, what do you think I could do? Because he was very successful. He got out of it because he's like, I just can't handle the stress of the industry that he was in. And my safe haven is actually Shauna, who's my best friend. And I remember telling her, when she first started the products, I told her, I was like, this is a scam. Can you not do this? And she's like, just give it a try. I'm like, fine. I'm like, and I have a 60-day money back guarantee. Perfect. And we've been doing this for 2 years now. And I feel we've known each other and been best friends for so long that I feel like, but these last 2 years, we have grown so much more closer because we're able to support each other in this journey, you know, and we're able to have these tough conversations with each other where we're able to convict each other and also, you know, lift up each other at the same time. So, you know, the loving mirror is definitely my husband, because he believes in me even when I feel like sometimes I don't. And I feel like that's so huge. But to be able to have, but if he says something to me that I feel like that Shauna would say, I would get offended. But she's able to say that to me because I know that she's walking with me in this business.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Who else has someone that they can just verbalize as their safe haven or loving mirror? It can be 2 different people, or it can be the same person. You can type it in the chat if you're not able to unmute. Jackie, do you have someone?
I can unmute. I am so incredibly blessed. I have a husband that is not only a loving mirror, but also a safe haven. And one thing he said to me not very long ago is, you know, I said, you know, do you really think I'm going to be a Plexus Diamond? And immediately he said, I don't see why not. You've succeeded at everything else you've ever done. And I believe him. He said it with such conviction that I believe him. I mean, and Jessica Heffley has said a lot of stuff to me also, but I just, he really and truly, without a question, he believes it. So I think that that's really important. And if you are blessed enough, and it can be your husband or your significant other or your spouse or someone that you get to see on a day-to-day basis, I think that helps, because then it just reinforces it over and over and over and over. So anyway.
I love that. You're blessed. I would say my loving mirror would be my husband. In some ways, yeah, he is my safe haven too, because he does push me, or he'll challenge me on something if I'm talking negatively about, a goal I've set or something like that. For me personally, my safe havens, well, I'll also say, I feel like there's people on my team that are loving mirrors and safe havens. Like, there's a lot of people on my team that push me to be better. And but I will say that for my safe havens, I have invested in those. So giving people permission to speak hard truths, to provide accountability. And so a couple of those things would be, well, for example, Justin has a life coach that's been phenomenal for him in like all areas of his life. And that's paid mentorship essentially. But that guy has pushed him farther and, more than he would have otherwise pushed himself, right? And then for me, it's been, investing in coaching accountability. I've been in Brooke's training, her Aligned Business Coaching course since December. I worked through that twice individually, and then I've duplicated as much as I could to my team December through now. And then I did her Momentum Makers in May, and then I'm already paid to be part of that in August. And I'm getting as many team members to do that in August with me, because I view it as just a paid, basically an investment in my business. But if I am not putting myself in a position to be a mentoree, I stagnate, and I'm not as good as of a leader that I could be if I'm not consistently putting myself in some sort of accountability and some sort of, coaching that I invest in. I'll also say that Jessica has a Diamond accountability group also. When we meet up like once or twice a month, we've gone through some books and things like that. Or so I should say a book about money mindset. But that kind of stuff is really, really good. It's important to be seeking that out. And just because you hit the goal that you set doesn't mean that you are done learning, right? I view myself as a lifelong learner, so I expect to always be invested in personal growth conferences, books, studies, and things like that. Anyone else want to share before we pop off about who their safe haven and loving mirror is? Let's see if anyone put it in the chat. Well, if that means you don't have one, then I'll just challenge you this week to find out who that person is for you. And you can report back next week. And also I would encourage you to do the exercise on page 99, which is interviewing your loving mirror and safe haven. All right, thanks for popping on, everyone. I hope that you've gleaned something and that there was one little nugget, because you know what? All of this is all about tiny little shifts, tiny little pivots that can make such a difference. And it's not one book study or one coaching call that you get on, but the willingness to put yourself in a position to learn and to be continuing to make those shifts and have that awareness. So proud of you guys for popping on. Thank you for being part of this. See you next week. Bye-bye.